Hello, everyone, and welcome back to DBR on CBR. That's right, it is time once again for Dragon Ball Rewatch. So for those of you who are following along, you can always watch on Hulu and Crunchyroll, and if you're reading along, you can read in the translation provided by Viz Media. Nice to see you all again. I'm Alex.
I'm Sam.
And I'm John.
And now it's time for John to give us the intro into this
Uh,
week's episode.
oh, yeah, so this has episode 11. The penalty is Pinball. Japanese air date May 7th, 1986. American original air date November 18th, 1995. We're adapting one chapter again. At last, the dragon. It has an exclamation mark, so you have to shout it. Plot pretty simple. Pilaf has the dragon team captured, and he's going to get that last ball come hell or high water.
I really feel like this is we were commenting last week about how briskly the story has been moving and how faithful to the manga. I think when we get towards the end of the Pilaf Saga, there's two more episodes beyond this left in it. They're really getting every drop they can out of the Pilaf confrontation. It's like let's draw this one out a bit. Let's make them.
It's funny, this is the slowest episode, sort of content-wise, we've had, because the middle of the episode sort of amounts to nothing, because it just loops back to them being in prison. But they still do a hell of a lot of stuff, despite looping round.
Yeah, there's so much going on here. I do want to talk a little bit about how really cool the peel-off traps look in this episode. Like the pinball dominoes thing. It's all very Looney Tunes, which I really enjoy. I think the animation is just so peak here to show that kind of thing.
I just like the PLF stuff in general this episode. It's very... But I will say they are making him more scary. They're definitely seemingly trying to make him more of a threat.
Yes, and that continues all of the stuff where he appears from the manga he's much more competent than he was in the filler stuff in the first, I guess, 10 episodes of the series, first 9 or so. The entire premise of this episode, the idea that he has a magical pinball palace, is made up specifically for the anime. Like John was saying, they're just stuck in the room for a chapter, and Bulma gets interrogated by Pilaf, and that's really it in the manga. And it's like, what if we had some action? Let's put some lightweight action in here.
I've just played Sonic 2 and the Casino Night Zone was really good. Let's just do that.
I love that they have to end up back in that room too, because it implies the whole setup is in this big giant circle, and they manage to shove them back into the exact same room.
Yes, so they've effectively fallen into the same stone trap twice. It's a complete circuitous loop, which makes me really wonder about what the interior design of Pilaf's palace looks like. Like, can I get a blueprint of how weird? Like, they go downstairs, they go yeah, it's a whole thing. Like,
this episode is great for the weird Pilaf lore as well. We learned things I didn't know we wanted to know about Pilaf. One, he knocked himself out, so they gas them, which we're going to come back to that because there's a weird thing there that kind of threw me. But when he's unconscious, he dreams about a mother. So he definitely is from a race that has parents. But also it's implied in this that Mai and Shu are like his kids.
They sleep in the same room.
The next episode, we see they share a room, but here he threatens them with like no dessert and no allowance. So, are they like his children now? Has he adopted them?
There's so many questions.
Yeah, I like the idea that, to still kind of depict Pilaf as a buffoon. Yes, he forgets his gas mask. He also tries to like woo Bulma into giving up the Dragon Ball.
Oh, but that technique is terrifying. Remember, Shu and Mai apparently are very familiar with this.
Well, this is because this is an edit here as well, because he's not in the Japanese. He is not threatening. The treatment in the Japanese is he is threatening to grope her, kind of effectively, and that's why you have Oolong really excited because he wants to see it. Except because the treatment is so ill defined in the dub, Oolong just looks really weird.
Oolong's ear is doing that like fold in. Actually, one of the best pieces of animation in the entire episode. Like, it's just such a good, smooth motion and also hilarious.
See, I'm also the funny thing I like is that in the Japanese original anime, when Bulma is caught and he does the kiss, she responds by listing off all the things she thought he was going to do, which includes another mention of Pafu Pafu. Please don't Google that at work. And then that offends Pilaf because it's too dirty. So he sends her back. And then also Mai and Shu are offended by it as well. So I guess Pilaf's a Puritan?
I mean, yeah, he's there. I don't think it's interesting because Super introduces the idea that Mai can have love interests, but as far as we know for Pilaf, this is like one of the rare instances where Pilaf shows any kind of romantic inklings or anything.
Yeah.
Other than that, you just kind of assume him and Shu are like sexless. They're asexual for all we
Yeah.
know.
They're just roommates.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
just
like
really good historical friends.
I do
They're
want
just
to
a
point out
sitcom.
in this enclosed space, we do get a lot of good Goku stuff too. Like when Pilaf shows up on the TV screen and he just looks at Yamcha and is like, if I jump through that window, I bet I could get him.
Yamcha's like slowly degrading sound. It's another great performance by Sabat to
Yeah.
kind of capture that feeling of he thinks he can get out, but as he can't, you can sort of see him starting to fray. It's surprisingly nuanced for what is originally a gag.
Yeah. He comes he still gets cool moments throughout Dragon Ball, some one coming up pretty soon, but yeah, I mean right here it's a Scooby-Doo chase
Yeah.
with an apparently musically controlled pinball.
That thing is I love stupid traps in things that I don't know what it is, but the dumber the trap in something, the better. I love this. It's so Dungeons and Dragons. It's the kind of thing you'd find in a crazy mage's tower, and I love that.
I love the bit where the ball's behind the curtain as well, and it's like revealed like in like a Bugs Bunny cartoon how they would reveal like, oh, the pretty dancing girl. And they just stand like, what could be behind that curtain with the big round shadow?
I'm curious, like, is it a standard pipe organ? Like, what is exactly?
Well, I can tell you, because I'm a nerd who worked this out, the music and the notes he's playing don't sync up at all. He's basically going plonk, 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 plonk. It's all. I checked the Japanese, like, oh, maybe in the Japanese it's actually a song. No, it's not a song there as well. It's like if Rush were really on sugar.
It's never
A sugar
explained.
rush,
Yeah.
as they would say.
Oh, so
Oh,
good.
perfect. But it's never explained like, oh, I will hit them with my organ pinball.
I'm also kind of thrown because I think I see a lot of people arguing this is a reference to Tommy, the
Oh,
Pooh movie, but that doesn't happen in Tommy. This is much closer to a reference of Phantom of the Paradise, where
yeah.
you do have the guy setting off. Because if you've never seen Phantom of the Paradise, it's basically sort of an updated version of Phantom of the Opera, where you do have him play on the keyboard and then something horrible happens on the stage. So I think it might be closer to that.
I mean, this isn't also like the first time in anime history where you would see this kind of like musical setup for a trap. Like this kind, Tezuka did similar things all the time too. Like this isn't a very unique trap. It's just a unique way that Pilaf is using it in his castle.
Talking of references, we get an airplane reference from Pilaf as well.
That's right.
Just dropped in there.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Another probably dubism, just always kind of like
It is a dubism, but because
100%.
that segment is when they're looking for trying to find out where the balls are.
Yeah.
And in the Japanese, Mai suggests that it's between Yamcha's legs. So are you happy to see me, or is that a Dragon Ball you have there, Yamcha? And that's where because that sets up the treatment gag, because Pilaf says, don't say that again. I don't like dirty jokes.
Ah,
But then in this, he just says, oh, I hate short people. And then Pilaf's like, boy, Pilaf and Shu.
they were so offended.
I mean, wouldn't you be?
I mean, I'm
She
sure.
sleeps in the same room. That they let her stay, and this is what happens.
This is
Yeah.
what happens. This is what happens when you let them into your house. They'll just start insulting you. I do want to point out earlier in one of our episodes I mentioned about Poir being a boy, and in the dub, Bulma calls Poir a girl. So
Oh, yeah.
I see why I was confused now because of the anime confused me.
And it's weird because like Toriyama, I believe in interviews about Poir would refer to them as using masculine kind of honorifics and that sort of thing. So it's like, oh, So yeah, for I don't think it's necessarily been consistent. But yeah, no, Quar is very directly used with she, her.
I just I just want to know if this is a Zoisite thing going on, where like Zoisite was male originally, and then they had to make Zoisite female because America.
Yeah, I actually don't know, but yeah, they do change it quite a few times.
Yeah, could
I
be
was,
a
I with some, I get the feeling it was just an on the day line mess up, and they was like, we're not going to re-record the whole segment just to correct that.
yeah. Yeah, I found myself getting oddly sentimental because the way that the obviously that the gas masks are illustrated are the same way that Toriyama, of course, would draw his own gas mask for his little
Yeah.
self-insert character. I was just like, oh, yeah, seeing Shu and Mai wear that, it was just like, oh, it's like Tori. Yeah, I mean,
It's
and it
it's a
makes
cute
perfect sense.
nod.
Well, and it makes perfect sense because, why would somebody change up how they draw gas masks?
Not gonna be too precious about the design here.
Yeah, yeah. Toriyama will change up like tanks, he'll change up cars, he'll change up everything, but gas masks, it's
That's a
pretty.
good reason.
Yeah,
Goku's been wearing the same outfit for 30 years. Like,
yeah, yeah. The little, Dr. Robot symbol. I always love that. And we've had cameos of that earlier in earlier episodes, like in wanted posters and stuff for Tori Bot. And we're gonna get some more Tori Bots before the series, this original series is done.
yeah.
So this episode is also where we get to see sort of the first Shenroning very near the end.
Yep.
What do you think about this first Shenron?
Well, first off, I don't think his size has ever been overly consistent.
But he is very small here.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a tiny
called
Shenron.
Yeah. It's the first Shenron. He's still waking up. Well, he'll get bigger as the series progresses by Tree
They
of Might.
also,
Yeah.
I think this is where they mention like Shenron lives in the core of the earth.
yes, that's mentioned in the narration.
Like, so the Dragon Balls aren't like where Shenron lives. They just let Shenron out of the house.
They're Shenron's sort of ring doorbell. When you have
Right.
them all together, he's like, oh, someone's at the door.
Yeah. So when Majin Buu destroys the planet at the end of Z, does that kill Shenron? I don't know. Like, maybe.
So,
He's on the moon with Monster Carrot.
Yeah.
so like all the because Shenron, spoiler alert, Shenron dies a couple of times. So like when Shenron is brought back, like what do you think that does to Shenron's psyche as the eternal dragon? Like,
I don't know. There's part of me that like he's obviously very impatient, and we see more of that in the preceding or in the following episode. Um, I think he takes on the demeanor of whoever is in charge of the Dragon Balls. I feel like Dende's Shenron is a lot different than Kami's Shenron. Um, I think the second time Kami creates Shenron towards the end of original Dragon Ball, it's slightly different than we see the Shenron before we're introduced to Kami and Piccolo at all.
yeah,
So I think it's kind of, I mean, he's got the copy of Shenron in the lookout. He's got the little Shenron statue.
little dome Shenron.
Yeah, yeah, the glass bottle Shenron. But yeah, and this is, it's another Sabat role. Sabat's cleaning up in Dragon
Dragon
Ball.
Ball. That's why it's called Dragon Ball S. Dragon Ball Sabat.
Yeah.
Can I point out that so we summon Shenron, we sort of do the sort of cliffhanger. They finish the cliffhanger, then before the end credits in some versions, or they don't have the end credits at all in some others, Shenron makes a noise that sounds like a Game Boy, like a Pokemon on the Game Boy, but the Game Boy is dying.
Yeah, like
It's
Yeah.
an unholy noise.
yeah.
I think this might just be how my TV set up, but that noise was so badly mixed that it jump scared the hell out of me. Because the episode's over, going type that.
This and next week's episode kind of end on jump scary moments, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, next week has a really good jump scare, which is surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's just stock dragon noises that, Toei Animation's got, which maybe gets recycled for like a Jardos or an Onyx when we get Generation 1 Pokemon in about 10 years.
Actually, it does sound like a more compressed version of the dragon from Kamen Rider Ryuki, so it may be a totally stock effect now I think about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it was a Toei stock effect, to be quite honest with you. Like they reuse sounds all the time. There's this one stomach gurgling noise that I think they've been using since like 1970 at Toei.
And we've already had it here because we've had the Pokeball noise from Roshi, and but yeah, no, it just I'm saying it might be how my TV set, but it just shocked me because it was so loud, and I was watching this quite late at night. It's like, oh my god, I pity my neighbors.
This is also, I think, the second time we see Goku do a Kamehameha wave.
Yeah.
Yes, he gets through a couple of them in the next 2 episodes. He racks up the total.
I wanna talk about this Kamehameha wave and this wall for like 2 seconds, only because I think for anybody who came in later or who has gone through the whole series already, it's so fascinating to see Goku not able to blow up a wall when this is the same dude who in like 20, 30 years in universe is going to be blowing up galaxies. Like I think that's one of the things I love about Dragon Ball is like how insane the progression is. It starts so small and ends up galactic, and I think that's something that we kind of take for granted nowadays, I think.
That's a triple butted, double reinforced steel lined wall.
Yeah,
according to Pilaf.
I'm just saying.
It's also kind of established that he's hungry for a lot of the sequence or for a lot of these episodes. And as we saw with his fight with Yamcha, and we'll see again on multiple occasions, whenever he's hungry, that dude is nerfed. That dude cannot he can't win a fight to save his life if he doesn't have food in the tank.
Do we think he was hungry on Namek when he got beat up by Captain Ginyu?
Yes. There's no buffets on Namek, so
I mean the Ginyu fight is a little different because Ginyu chickens out when he sees how the full extent of Goku's power and then does that's a whole we'll get there. We'll
get there in 5 years.
Talking about your thing about sort of power leveling, you are totally right. Like I was joking about the wall thing, but it is hilarious now if you sort of make like a list of like the first thing Goku loses to in a fight, it's a wall effectively. The pinball gag would not work beyond Arc 1 of Z. Because post that point, you just go, why doesn't Goku just turn around and blow the ball up?
And he tried. He tries to hit it.
And he comes back.
It goes as far to be like, because we've already built up Goku to be this like mythically strong character. And so it's like, okay, he's going to take a pot shot at the ball and it just, like in Looney Tunes, like you guys were saying, crushes him pancakes him against a wall.
I just love that. I love that Goku really did grow up in a way with his audience. Like people who were watching Goku in 1985 like are now in their 40s and 50s, and it's like, oh, okay, like the progression has continued. It's very Toy Story of it. I do like that one moment with the pinball where it almost hits them and then it pulls back and goes for them again, because Pilaf just looks like we were talking about. He looks so intimidating playing that piano, like sweating and cackling. It's really good. It's just really good sequencing.
And I find it interesting in the manga, like how he's shaded. Like he's always kind of like in shadow and stuff in the manga. He's a little darker and everything. And it's like, okay, this guy's kind of creepy. I mean, he's a buffoon. Look how dark he is in some of these panels. And it's just like, oh, okay. And then, but yeah, he's always kind of been this little blueberry boy as far as the show has been.
They kind of recreate that in this episode a little bit because they keep uplighting him, which gives him a very Universal Monsters look. Because they sort of the old Bela Lugosi films, that's how they'd always, when he was being evil, you'd light him from below and it would show off all his wrinkles.
Or like you get that like one strip of light across the eyes, like that has happened a couple times too.
Yeah, the old Dracula style.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell they are trying to set Pilaf up here as a bit more of an evil guy.
Yeah, yes, for the next for about the span of 4 episodes, he's like, oh, this dude's a villain. And then after that, after the Pilaf Saga, it's like, okay, well.
Now he's Meowth.
Yeah.
His paperwork cleared. He's got his evil permit for the weekend.
Yeah. You can
I want to go back to one thing that threw me is that the gassing stuff, where in the Japanese, they just call it sleeping gas. But they call it in the dub yellow number 3 or yellow number 4.
Yeah.
Which really threw me because up to this point, we've seen that the dub has been trying to sort of soften these things. Like the oolong sedatives becoming sleeping powder. I'm surprised that this, which is very clearly a reference to several actual chemical weapons, was added in the dub and got through. Like, I presume they would just go back to sleeping gas or knockout gas. But no, I guess they presumed kids wouldn't get the joke 'cause it's kind of an Agent Orange reference as well as a few other things.
I feel like it's a lot of I feel like it's just them kind of riffing in the studio. And yeah, they probably were like entertaining themselves and not necessarily writing it for children. They're just like, what should we call this secret weapon? Call it yellow. It's like a Mountain Dew ingredient. It's just innocuous enough where it won't raise an eyebrow. But yeah, there are some real world like implications there where it's like, okay,
Did
all
you know,
right.
another thing that's been catching me this episode is because we had Bulma flipping them off as well, and that was kept in, which is again something else that surprised me.
Up at the
Obviously,
ceiling,
that
like
was cut
yeah.
in all the earlier dubs, of course. But also, I keep forgetting how much they say die in this dub because I'm so used to like the earlier dubs where you could never say people had died. But here they're just saying it continually. Pilaf is just threatening to kill people, which
So
Yeah.
I will say I do want to mention one thing about the yellow number four thing because I don't know if you guys remember this, but yellow number four dye in food in the 90s was specifically associated with effects on male fertility.
Oh yes.
oh,
That's why we were told not to drink so much Mountain Dew.
Like it was especially in America, like yellow number four was like the scary chemical of the 1990s.
Yeah.
So if they could have easily been riffing, or it could be a very cleverly contained joke.
that would also fit with because considering the original gag was about them looking in Yamcha's pants. That
Yeah.
would actually, yeah. So I didn't grow up in the US, so that's totally new to me. But that would be a great. Well, I'll have to email Chris Sabat now and be like, was that a dick joke?
That's the urban legend. That's growing up in high school. It's like this is why you don't drink Surge, kids.
Well,
But yeah,
now I've learned something about American culture.
Now
yeah,
you've learned.
hyper specific to like 25 years ago, but yes. And yeah, they do say die a lot, and I presume it's because, they don't have to attribute everything to being blasted to the next dimension as we see in the original dub for Z.
I mean, we're post the ocean dub era of dubs. We're post like this is kind of post 4Kids a little bit. Like they were
It
relegated
is.
to their own corner.
Yeah, we're
I
on
think
now,
with
baby.
this, I think with this dub, it's definitely you can definitely tell they've sort of decided Dragon Ball isn't being watched by children anymore. They're not. It's going to be watched by older people who've already seen Z. But it's still one of those things that just catches me off guard now and again because I forget. Oh right, this is a much later dub. This current one.
Yeah.
So I think since we're coming towards the end of our time, gentlemen, why don't we get some final thoughts? And as a part of your final thought, let's hear your favorite moment with Shumai and Pilaf so far.
Oh, so far, anytime they use the robots with arms and legs and pot bellies, I love it. I always love that design, and I'm so happy that we see it in virtually. I mean, they're in Sandland, I think, too. They
They
so
are.
I love that. Toriyama loves drawing these very expressive robots. So whenever they get in those, it's always a good time.
Ooh, for me, it actually comes next episode. There's the weird roommates bit gets more intense next episode, and there's a shot of them all sharing the same room, and it's just the weirdly cutest thing because they each have like their own themed little bed. It gives me flashbacks to a children's show I used to watch when I was very little called Tots TV, which did the same thing. All three characters lived together, but each would have their own themed bed, and just gave me a flashback to that. I'm like, that's weirdly cute. That's weirdly cute for a group of people who are currently trying to murder 5 people.
Yeah.
And just one of my final thoughts. So the bat sequence, Poir Bat, please make it a marketable plushie of that immediately, Toei. I will buy it. Please don't make a marketable plushie of the Oolong Bat because that disturbs me on a level. Yeah, no, please don't make the Oolong Bat a thing because it looks. I think David Cronenberg would be a big fan of the Oolong Bat. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think this about wraps it. We're coming up on the end of. Or Alyx, how about you? You didn't answer. You didn't answer the
Oh
question.
yeah. My favorite Pilaf gang moment, I really like when they're breaking into Master Roshi's house. I find that very, very funny. It's such a good sequence of events. And final thoughts, I do like this episode. I will say you can kind of tell that they had to fill in this chapter a lot. Like it's all really good filler, but it is still filler for the most part. But yeah, I really love this episode, and you are right, Sam. We are coming up so close to the end of the Pilaf saga. So, my friends, it is time once again for us to sign off. This has been Alyx.
Sam.
And John.
And we will see you. Oh, wait, I forgot. You can follow along once again on Hulu and Crunchyroll, and you can read along in Viz Media's translation of the original manga. Thank you so much for walking, and we will see you next time on Dragon Ball.